Welcome friends to a Star Wars Lore video. Today we're going to look at one of the most devastating weapons ever unleashed on the Star Wars galaxy. The Imperial Deathstar battle station and of course the fearsome laser attached to it. Now it was all made and put into action under the eye of Grand Moff Tarkin. As you'll most likely know, the original Death Star resembled a small moon. In addition to having the laser gun, which again we'll come back to later, it could also move through hyperspace in search of suitable ships to destroy and planets to annihilate. And of course, if you're even slightly into Star Wars movies, you'll know that it was used to destroy Princess Leia's homeworld. Now, the power behind the actual super laser was an incredibly large fusion reactor. This was in the very heart of the battle station. The beam itself, however, was produced by having several different individual beams come together. At the point of coming together, they would be combined using a central focus lens to create the devastating blast. And each of the individual beams were made by amplification crystals. These would be located around the cannon's circular well. Now, each of those crystals requires a gunnery station to put it into use. Each gunnery station will be manned by 14 gunners who would adjust and monitor the pulses levels required. Now, of course, there was a second Death Star, and certain improvements were made at that stage in terms of the super laser design. The first one had a recharge period of around 24 hours. However, the second could fire a blast every few minutes. Think of the devastation that could unleash if it was actually used on several planets within a certain area. It could wipe out a small solar system in no time. Also, other improvements added from the Imperial technicians' knowledge were advanced targeting systems. Now, outside of the laser, the Death Stars were quite well armed anyway. The original Death Star had I'm going to term it as a payload of 5,000 turbo lasers and heavy turbo lasers, 2,500 laser cannons, and ion cannon emplacements. The ion cannons, of course, destroy the ability for a ship to move. It's sort of equivalent to EMPs, as I understand it, on our Earth. And the Death Star, to finish off its arsenal, has more than 700 long-range tractor beams. So don't get too close to this thing. And outside of that, there are, of course, the deep supply in the docking bays of TIE fighters, TIE interceptors, bombers, and many other different types of starships. The second Death Star could improve on that, boasting 15,000 turbo laser cannons alone. And both Death Stars needed a staff of over 1 million officers. This would be different roles: gunners, technicians, troopers, and associative support personnel. But of course, the first Death Star had something overlooked. It had a fatal flaw: a small, unshielded thermal exhaust port, where Luke Skywalker, attuning himself to the Force, was able to fire a pair of proton torpedoes into this area, causing the Death Star to explode. The explosion itself was as a result of a chain reaction, and it also killed Tarkin, along with those inside. And as you may well know, there was also an issue with the second Death Star, another flaw. We are told by the New Essential Guide this was the Emperor's overconfidence. When the Rebel Alliance moved into place around the second Death Star above Endor, as far as their knowledge goes, their informants have told them that the super laser is not yet complete. Unfortunately, when they get there, they find out it is complete, and that this was a trap to lure the Rebel fleet out of hiding and finally stomp out their resistance against the Emperor. Yes, the super laser was, as the Emperor says, quite operational. However, a small force under the leadership of Han Solo down on Endor was able to lower a deflector shield that was protecting the Death Star. Then Lando Calrissian and the incredibly good pilot, Wedge Antilles, were able to fly into the station's superstructure and its core and attack its reactor directly. There were several genius minds involved in the creation of the original Death Star. This included Wraith Sinner and engineer Bevel Lamalisk, according to legends. Sinner's version of this station was known as the Expeditionary Battle Planetoid. And it was actually originally designed as a starship to explore. However, this non-military design was elaborated upon by Genosian contractors employed by Count Dooku and the Confederacy to turn it into something more in line with what he wanted. Dooku hoped that these Genosians would be able to create a station that would be capable of destroying the old Republic worlds. The Confederacy itself was never able to actually complete a full Death Star. Tarkin then later acquired the designs, roughly by the end of the Clone Wars. Then he worked with Lamalisk and a chief scientist, Tol Sivron, and a prototype of this was built in the Secret Maw installation, which we referenced in some of the other videos on this channel. This was years before the Battle of Yavin, and it was there that Tarkin and the engineers around him began to put together the Death Star that would doom billions of lives on Alderaan. And that, friends, is where I will end today's video. I hope you enjoyed this. This is very much Star Wars Legends, so just to let you know that.